Welcome to the Feral Minds Podcast. You are right where you need to be, and we are glad you're here. Come seek with us as we laugh at what we have known and find direction from what our curiosities demand we learn. So tell me about mansplaining. This is a term that was new to me. Sounds a little derogatory towards us precious males.
What's derogatory about it?
Well, explain to me.
A male explanation. I mean, if you break down just the word mansplaining, let me explain the word mansplaining.
Please do.
No, I'm sorry. You see that little opening you start right there? That is a good telltale indication that you're about to get mansplained.
All right.
And I didn't have a full grasp on what mansplaining was either. I truly didn't. You know, it was, I don't know, the first time you posed this question to me, because we've been kicking around this idea of a mansplaining episode, what now, month?
Yeah.
And I think the first time you asked me what is mansplaining, like
It's something I'm supposed to feel bad about
term,
or what?
I don't know. Like I said, when you asked me at that time, I'd used the term a bunch and not thought much about it until you asked.
Okay.
And then I started paying attention to try to figure out what it is. You know, you can look it up, and that did help. I don't remember the definition off the top of my head.
So when it got levied at you had done something somewhere, and somebody said, quit mansplaining.
Oh, well, we all have. We've all been told, stop mansplaining me.
Okay.
If you're an over 40-year-old man and you've communicated with anybody in a significant arena, I guarantee someone has probably said to you something that you've mansplained.
Okay, so mansplaining is I'm a male.
It's not.
And I'm
okay, so here's
something.
and here's what I don't like about the aspect. It doesn't have to be a man. Like, I've been mansplained by a woman before.
Okay.
So you I don't know if you said this on her after, but like, has man become a bad word?
I don't know.
And I thought that was a good question.
Yeah.
And because in this instance, I think that whenever you say the word mansplaining, it is to give a negative connotation to the act of explaining something. This is fun. Like, we really are. We're mansplaining. But I don't know how else to get to the bottom
It's a douchey, so it's a guy explaining something to a female in a douchey way?
Not even necessarily to a female. Like, I'm telling you, I can mansplain out to other men. I've had women mansplain to me.
Then why do we have to have man in there? If it's just people over-explaining, why is it a man thing?
Okay, now, again, you got two show topics you're rolling with. Is man a bad word? And what is mansplaining?
No, it's one show topic. It's right now. What does it mean?
Well, whenever it comes to the sense of this explanation, what I get the sense is that when you mansplain, first off, you do it in a condescending manner.
Okay.
It's taking the beautiful act of sharing information, explaining something, and then you bastardize it by trying to make yourself somehow better than the person you're explaining to.
Okay.
Poof. That's pretty much it in a nutshell.
So that's a perception
now,
of somebody
there's
receiving.
multiple ways on how you do that within the explanation.
But that's a perception of somebody receiving your explanation of something and then going, you've gone too far? Like, is it over-explaining? Is that what it is?
That's the second aspect
but
of it.
What does happen? So men are prone to that?
Yes. Have you never felt yourself doing it?
No.
I've had you do it to me before.
Well, explain
you mansplained me.
All right, explain it to me. What'd I do?
So the time I noticed it real well was we were messing with some of the editing stuff.
Okay.
And, you know, say there are 10 steps in this thing I wanted to do with the editing thing. Like, we're not getting too specific here, but just take the activity and assume there's 10.
Okay.
And I had done like step 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got to 5 and I couldn't remember where that next thing was or whatever.
Right.
And so I said, hey, where do I go for this?
Came to me for help.
Right.
Okay.
And instead of answering my question with, just click up here, it came with, well, let me show you. See here, what you got is you start over here, and the reason you need to do that is after you've gotten to here, this is what's going to happen. And then after you've done that step, these next ones are going to come along too.
Yeah. And so I amplified your stupidity. You needed a little bit of an explanation. And I said, this dumb dude, I better take him back to the start. Because he didn't catch 1 through 9. How's he going to catch step 10?
Yes.
Okay.
And so when I start talking about the two different aspects of mansplaining, one is somewhat of a condescending manner, and 2 is more than what is required.
Okay.
For the explanation.
Wow.
I think those are the two things that make
What an ungrateful way to ask for help, though. You asked for help. I gave you the answer, and you're like, "Whoa, wait a minute!
Not any more than the answer.
Your answer is too much for me, and I don't like the way in which you have had to tell me how to do something."
Yeah.
You know what I'll tell you? Don't ask me then, homie. Okay, if you're going to get upset at me for giving you an answer to something you needed, don't ask me. Figure it out yourself.
I agree.
Worrying about words, and this guy told me too much, or he made me feel
words,
stupid.
It's the words
Figure
and the emotion behind them.
You know what? My intent probably in that motion was like, all right, let me remind him how to do it all. And you're sitting there going like, this guy thinks I'm stupid because I had to ask for help, and now he's over helping me. I must be stupid. Screw him.
Yes, and
thought. I mean, you came to me asking for help, man. Be grateful for the help.
Yeah, and that's why, like you've noticed, this happened weeks ago. Like I didn't say to you in that moment, I didn't come to you and say
because you know I would have gone nuts. You're seeing it right now. I'm getting angry about it right now. You asked me for help, and then instead of being grateful for the help, you got upset about
the way it was delivered.
Help.
Yes,
that's the definition of being ungrateful. You should be grateful for the help that I delivered to you in that moment.
You're definitely doubling down on the mansplaining mentality.
I would. If I ask somebody for help and they're gracious enough to give it to me, I will receive it any way I get it. Now, if they go too far, to me, I gave them that prerogative when I went to them asking for help. I should be grateful that they gave me help.
That's one way you can look at it. And to some extent, I think that might be why you don't understand, or not just you, why some people may not understand what mansplaining is. Or maybe participate into it a whole lot. Because from a facet, like you just said, if you look at it from the mentality of the person who's here to help, then yeah, you could have that facet. But if you start looking at it from the other side, because every once in a while, everybody is going to have little trip ups and hiccups. And sometimes you just want to say to someone, hey, I've got a little cut of information here. Mm-hmm. I don't want a full body cast.
Yeah.
I just want you to give me that little band-aid of information I needed. I didn't need you to come full-blown triage unit on me and give me everything you knew about it.
Then why didn't you use your communication skills, use your words, and say, I don't need all that. I need step 9.
Well, I can't when you're in the middle of the explanation.
Oh, again. But again,
like you
this all
just
comes
sit there and take it.
All right, this comes from
if you ever start getting mansplained, it's hard to shut that boat down. Like you have to just dive into the ride and like, oh crap, I said I'm a little bit stupid. The person talking to me decided I'm a lot stupid. I don't get to decide anymore. I can't try to your point of what you're saying. You came to me for help. I'm giving you the help. But then all of a sudden, I put into your mind however much help you want to give me. And so you're forcing me onto this stupidity ride that I might not even want to go on.
I'm not telling you you're stupid.
I want to get on a little bitty stupidity.
But who's telling you you're stupid? Not me.
Well, by the over-explanation.
That's your internal dialogue.
The over-explanation gives that implication.
Oh, God, we're so sensitive. Are you for real?
That's
a real thing.
Yeah, that's where the sensitivity is. I'm not kidding.
We're just making up words to make people feel bad at this point. If you're going to ask for help and then be so ungrateful as the style of help didn't match the white chocolate mocha flavor of help you wanted, now it's got to be labeled.
Well, not only that,
and I'm supposed to feel bad about being a
drenched
man.
in it.
Oh,
but that's what's going on. So I could see both sides of it. To be truthful,
okay.
Like I do agree with some of your argument here. Or the position you're coming from, not necessarily the argument. I agree with some of what you're saying.
Here's what I will tell you. Sensitivity.
That's the man.
Here's my mansplanation for this entire cockamamie of a conversation. That if you're going to get into this, if we're going to get into words that derive sensitivity, specifically when humans are communicating, it's inefficient. I think well, like in this example, sensitivity is inefficient because you need what you needed. I gave it to you. But now we have to spend all this time about how James didn't make me feel like I was enough. But James wasn't doing that. That was your perception. That was already the guilt that you had from trying to ask for help. So I just, when we get into these words, we're like, sensitivity is something that I'm supposed to look out for other people's sensitivities at all point in time. How do I live like that?
You don't.
How do I live like that?
You don't. So I'm
not going to live like that. That's what I tell you. I'm not going to live like that.
And what you touched on a good point there. Like I said, the two things I think that really add to mansplaining, the condescending nature and the over-explanation of it.
Yep.
And you just brought up a beautiful point right there. The person explaining can't control if the other person feels condescended to or not. Like there's two different people in an mansplaination. Yeah. The one person always wants to blame the explainer, but there's two people in a mansplaination. and the people getting explained to, I think, need to understand their role as opposed to just pointing at the person who's giving them the explanation they asked for.
Yeah.
Because you can't decide as the explainer how the other person receives it. No, you don't get to decide if they feel comfortable.
Again, I know males can be overbearing at times. That's anthropological purpose. There's a reason why we are a little overbearing. And I don't think I would defend that, and I'm sure I do plenty of that. It's not something I'm going to carry guilt for. And, it's certainly not something I'm going to wear a badge of discredit for because I helped you in a way that you thought was too aggressive. That's just an interesting take on asking for help and not really understanding how to be grateful about it.
It has a little bit to do. So then back to the point, like you're saying, or the other aspect, we thought maybe it'd be two different shows. But so is man a bad word? Like, does every aspect of what a male brings to the table now, has it all just become toxic? Is there any way to be a male and not be toxic? Yeah. What do you think?
I think we're too bored. I think we've gone to a place where we're not exploring anything else anymore, and we're just staring at each other, trying to figure out how to get sensitive and make new terms to make people feel bad about really something they didn't do, about the insecurities that you're walking around with, and go, oh, okay, I've been victimized in this way. Mansplaining, I've been victimized. I'm now a victim. And
that's what I'm saying.
If you're walking around with, if you want to be a victim, you can always find a perpetrator. If you're walking around this earth trying to be victimized, you can find it. Now, whether or not the intent from the other perspective is actually to victimize you or not, but if you have a victim mentality, if you're walking around thinking that if only I could have it in ways that it hasn't come to me, or this always happens to me in certain ways, or I've got this aggressor in my life that's creating these circumstances that are working against me. I think when you carry that mindset, it's hard to overcome. You're kind of walking around in a sensitive box, waiting or hoping not to be offended instead of living your life.
Yeah, it's like every single person you come in contact is going to be an assailant in some way, shape, or form. If you're walking around with that victim mentality, like it's an interesting thought you bring up. It to me, like I said, it takes two people to get mansplained. Yeah, and who's to blame for what's going on in the situation?
I was reading a book the other day that I can't remember the author, but they were framing optimism as not an outward position, but more of how you consider what happened to you and why it happened to you when the outcome you desired didn't become a reality. So if you wanted that new job and you didn't get it, is it because you suck, you're horrible, you can't interview, you didn't lie well enough on your resume, or is it just because that wasn't the job you were supposed to get, right? And so an optimist is going to say, well, that's not for me. There's a greater thing beyond this that I'm meant to achieve, and that's why this didn't work out, right? The pessimist, which I think I spend quite a bit of time in that padded room, the pessimist is going to make it about themselves, and I've done that a ton. And so, if I went for the same job we were talking about, I would be very critical on myself. I'd be critical of how I communicated, critical of how I presented myself. It'd be very hard for me to author the grace to allow myself some greater destiny. I get stuck in that moment. Why didn't I get the job? Why am I inadequate? And it was interesting for me to even read that because I've wondered, and I've joked at times, that I like to collect optimists, right? Yeah. Kind of like, have you ever seen that episode of The Trolls?
I've often wondered if
the evil people get the trolls and they put them inside and they get the trolls' essence and it helps them dance.
Okay.
Like I don't know that I do this with absolute intent, but I've noticed that I happen to collect optimists around me somewhat to offset my natural pessimism. And when I heard that, I thought, man, maybe I've got a shot at being an optimist. Maybe I can build myself into one if every time something comes at me that historically I've just been like, dude, you suck. Why are you not good enough for this? If I can just turn that around and go, well, there's something greater. And if I did that, then I wouldn't be able to get to whatever's greater. I don't know. Can I work myself into being an optimist? That's the task in front of me right now.
That's all optimism is. You're constantly working towards it.
Yeah,
is the way I feel about it.
Yeah.
Because I've lived in it. I've lived in optimism my whole. I'm dangerously optimistic.
Irresponsibly optimistic.
Irresponsibly optimistic. Yeah. I swim in that realm.
You have to work for it though. Does it naturally occur to you? Is that a position that you have to like maintain?
It's naturally something I like to work towards. Would be a good way to put it. It is.
So optimists are not born.
Absolutely. And if you don't keep trying to churn that direction, you could slide back the other way into pessimism. It's an energy. It's that thing in life. You can't sit still. Your pen will continue to move.
Yeah.
Which way you moving your pen? You moving it up or you moving it down?
I thought optimists were born. That's always been my thought. There's certain people that are born happy, and we don't have a lot of optimists in our life. But I always thought, I didn't know they were maintaining their thoughts in a way that was allowing them to create optimism. I thought it's kind of how they bounced out the two. But it makes so much sense because those are the harshest moments of judgment about yourself is whenever whatever desire you were pursuing didn't come into reality. You got to step back and go like, all right, do I got to recalibrate myself? Do I have to be something different now? Do I need to build something into my existence that was making me fall short of whatever I wanted? Or am I good enough?
Or is there something wrong with your wants? Or am I not seeking out the right thing?
Yeah.
That's a little bit of what I touched on some previous shows. Like whenever things aren't falling into line for you, when you get to places where you're having to choose pessimism or optimism, well, you just need to relook at what you're seeking out towards. Not necessarily to try to judge that you need to feel good or bad or even, optimistic about anything, but more so the curiosity of what it got you there and where to go from here is potentially, to try to take away any sort of, that conversation between pessimism or optimism, when you're starting to look at what your situation in life is, really is the best way to come from neither place?
No, I don't think so.
Because I've done optimism, and I'm telling you, as we're sitting here talking about it, it can be dangerous. Like it's a more upbeat place to come from.
So what's the downside of optimism?
Man, everything has a yin and a yang. Like there's always some bad side to it. Optimism can lead you into not desirable places because you optimistically thought it might get better for you.
So you're ignoring logic and optimistically wishing a reality that maybe is unachievable?
Yes. Yeah. And it's interesting you bring up the word logic because that was something I wanted to touch on earlier whenever we were hitting on the mansplain conversation. To me, a little bit of what we're talking about in this whole discussion is just a left brain versus right brain kind of conversation. One, logic, information, necessity, function. And the other one, interest, form, beauty.
Yeah.
Those are the two different sides that we're talking about that butt heads.
Yeah.
Whenever you get into this arena of
that's kind of the hemisphere of our reality. They're both your life's going to be spent between defining and pursuing what's logic and then doing what you enjoy, right? And those two often they can be a distance apart from one another. Well, you want them to lay on top of each other, but especially as you grow older, and you start learning about terms like mansplaining, and you're thinking, "Wow, I just."
When you start realizing all your maleness is now looked at as being wrong.
What you just described is how I led people for 15 years. You came to me for help, and I solved it in whatever way I could, in whatever moment I could, and never really even thinking about, did I make this person feel bad? It was kind of like, bring me the next problem for the next person that needs the next problem.
Yeah. And you got your little pump of, ego, so to speak, for feeling good that I was able to share this information.
See, and it worked the other way for me.
There you go. You're welcome. Thanks for coming by. And so that is a little bit of the mansplain. That's part of the essence of it. You've got to, and I know how much it can hurt to feel like I got to step on feelings and emotions now just to try to transfer information. But that is where we're at. Well, because the left and the right brain, like you talk about, there can be, or the whole dichotomy of the planet or whatever. The beauty is where those two can find merriment and dance together. And that's where I think trying for.
What I think about pessimism, because you're in a battle with your thoughts for the majority of your life, right? And you're battling a lot of things that fear throws at you that are never going to come to fruition. Mm-hmm. And so optimism, I think, because again, to a certain degree, you're fighting a foe that's never going to show itself. And so if I have a foe that's coming at me that doesn't have a reality to any of these fears that we chase, especially the ones that loop on us, right? The fear of being lonely.
The one that has no happy ending, that has no bad ending. It's just a circle.
I'm finally going to run out of money, or my spouse is going to leave me, or all these like terminal loops that we find ourselves in. They're very unproductive. And to me, they're fake, essentially, right? Your mind is telling you things that could happen, and it's occupying space in a reality that's very low probability. And so if I was to gather up my optimism and throw my almost fake optimism at my fake fear and just let them deal with it, it sets me free a little bit. And so that's where I'm going with my attempt now after reading, you read a self-help book and you're about to be something different.
Yeah.
You're about to go get you a brand new set of pants and you're going to be a new man. And I've felt this before, and it usually doesn't go anywhere. But I think what's interesting, what really resonated with me, is I'd never thought about the fact that my hardest moments of self-doubt are always on the other side of an undeliverable desire. And if I'll stand in that and go, okay, let's don't make this a dark cloud. Let's accept it as a reality that I didn't need for circumstances I can't see.
An unanswered prayer.
Again, why not? Why not build this body of optimism that I know is not entirely genuine to go fight the fears that aren't genuine? And so, like, it's just my own little transformer. We all live
on our own fantasy world.
Yeah.
I mean, this is something
you're in your thoughts all day long.
Yeah, it's your world. You're living in it. Everybody else is just your characters. Mm-hmm. And it is wild how much of your own existence you can decide and live in complete uniqueness, separate from others. Everybody lives in their own separate realities.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of curious to see what sort of realities people build around themselves. Hell, I saw an interesting quote today that said, I think it had something to do with when people speak their opinion of the world, they don't realize they're just secretly telling you about themselves.
Yeah, that's true. All through your lens, right? I mean, what comes out of your mouth is not a description that's not been ran through your filter.
So one of the best things you can ask someone right now is you walk up to them and say, hey, how's the world?
That's interesting. That's not something I do often.
Think about that.
Yeah.
Like you ask me right now, it's like, man, it's a great place to be. I can't explore enough of it. Like, it is beautiful, and I love every aspect of what it's here to provide for me. How do you go ask some people that question? It's like, world's going, these guys do this, the government this, the war and that. Like, that's just you inside your own head. That's the reality that you have created for yourself. Now, here's the thing. When you tell someone that, now the first thing they're going to start doing is pointing outside of them. That's going on in Ukraine. The news told me this. This guy's about to get this.
Yeah.
But in the end, I'm living in the same world every other human on this planet is.
Do you watch news?
Almost never.
I've tried to get it out of my life, and I've noticed when I get back into it, it takes me into dark places. And so I block it on my phone. But even that, man, I have this desire to see what's going on, and I'll go a couple
that's
weeks.
Fine. Curiosity.
It is, man, but it's also some of this morbid Mayan calendar stuff where I'm trying to like, okay, is the bomb coming today? Okay, maybe I got a couple more days.
Hasn't our generation been looking for that end of time ever since 1999? I mean, are we not stuck in that generation that really kept getting a whole lot of narratives about how the world's about to end?
We had
every generation. We got the Mayan calendar.
Every generation has these
challenges. As many as we did.
Think about that.
I really think we invented a lot for ourselves.
Think about the ones that had to, in the 50s that had to take shelter in elementary schools under the desk, right? I mean, think about it. We never had to deal with that psychology. They really thought.
That's right.
Really thought
the Cuban Missile Crisis.
At any point in time. Well, just the Cold War in general. Right? There was a whole stroke of time where they were training kids on how to get under desks.
Okay.
Which is very similar to putting a bicycle helmet on as you dive out of an airplane. Like, there's a lot of futility in it, but it's all you can do in those places. And so you carry that baggage around as a 5, 6, 7-year-old. I mean, we don't. We don't know what that. What I'm saying is every generation faces its challenges. I think right now, because the news cycle forces a lot of negativity in us, I've thought that if mankind really wants to move forward, you're going to have to stop the news. At some point in time, it becomes our humanitarian obligation to turn off this stream of negativity, because you're programming a populace to believe that only the worst of them is possible, because that's what you show them. Mm-hmm. And so if you're trying to improve a set of circumstances, and
shining the spotlight on the worst part of those circumstances aren't going to improve.
I think it makes us as humans almost feel like we're incapable of doing certain things because of the negativity that we see that's broadcasted towards us. And then there comes a futility with that. And so if a war is going on over here, or if I vote this election, then the war goes on over there, it can just become this existential crisis within.
Well, here's a good question.
You turn the news off, you don't have to have any of those thoughts.
Yeah.
You live your life, and your life is controlled. And I think we will have, and you and I have talked about the new exploration, the frontier of consciousness. We will have a moment where we'll have to turn the news off. And if we don't turn the news off, we won't realize our full potential, because we'll be stuck
in someone else's
in the
narrative
90%
of negativity,
of the negative that they're showing us, and then the futility that comes from that. And like you chase that. So if we go to like at ABC News, we see the bombs going across seas, right? We hear about the economy. We hear about whatever's going on in the political sphere. Then you go down to the local news. And the local news, it's kind of tragically comic how bad they will go out of their way to find the negativity.
Yeah.
And it starts with a shooting happened over here, a shooting happened over there.
This crash.
A finch caught on fire over there.
Little fire.
They will grab any ember in local news and breathe a big breath on it to try to inflame it and bring it into a reality that you're supposed to care about. And I've experienced with the older generation right now, that when I tell them that I don't watch news, it's almost like I've lost some civic credibility. I have an obligation as a citizen to be aware of the current topics, but the fallacy in that is it's not the current topics. It's just what they choosing to show me, and that channel is choosing to show me what they know will trap my awareness, which usually involves fear.
Not just trapping awareness. It will also perpetuate the story they want you to hear. They are deciding what you think about.
Yeah.
I had a really good realization that came to me. And it takes a second to build up. But it starts with the quote that the pen is mightier than the sword.
Okay.
And so to an extent, what that thing is speaking to is the pen is referring to the ability to control the narrative is more important than the person who is holding the sword for that narrative.
Yeah.
So here, as human beings, if we spend all of our time getting our thoughts from something else, being told what to think, a la the news channel.
Being told what to care about as well.
Being told what to care about, being told how to care about it.
Yeah.
There are all kinds of good and bad things going on all over this planet at any given moment that could be newsworthy.
Yeah.
But best believe that news channel has picked the one that is going to get you to think and feel and behave the way they want to. So if that is what you're running around thinking about all day, is something somebody else told you to think about, you're not living your own life. And I think we see a lot of people doing that and finding complete strife and unhappiness in it. And that's one of the quickest ways I feel like right now you could clear your emotional energy on this world is to understand that all news is gossip. It is not facts. Yep. It is not important. It is not your responsibility to know.
Yeah.
Like I'm kind of even reminded of the quote, if a tree falls in the forest and no one is there to hear it, it doesn't make a sound. So, by that point, if a news story of a terrible atrocity that would elicit more atrocities isn't watched, was that atrocity ever really needed in humanity?
And if you didn't watch it, are you not guilty? Are you guilty for not applying your consciousness?
Am I supposed to run around listening for trees to fall?
Yeah.
Do I need to go look for atrocities?
It depends.
No.
It depends on who you ask as to whether or not you're supposed to be currently aware of circumstances that the news media wants you to tune into that really don't have that great effect on your life. I mean, we're coming into another election cycle, and it's going to be team red or team blue. But you tell me how your life is different in the last 10 years. It just depends on how much of the noise you want to tune into.
My life has been affected by me, the choices that I make into it, and not so much the outside. Or even more importantly, the way I choose to react to the backdrop of the story the world gives me.
Yeah.
Like I was kind of saying earlier, the world, humanity, however you want to say it, will provide the opportunity for you to tell any story you want within your existence and your participation with it. You could tell a story of negativity. You could go look at everything that's going on in the world and find something negative and support that story. And you could live from that place of how awful everything is, if that's where you chose to put your perception.
Yeah.
Or you could go find things that are positive, and you could try to come from that place all the time. But the thing is that that's still you going too far outside yourself. More importantly, what you can do is look at the condition that you are in and what is around you and come from that place. Don't come from this mental space that the news puts you in, or even this mental space that you go chase out on your own because you're trying to seek a certain narrative. Like we all know about that information bubble you can get stuck in. You can get caught up in a narrative of your own and find information to support that, and it could be completely untrue. I mean, for the love of God, there are still people who believe the Earth's flat. Like you can't
those guys
tell
them. Those people just surfaced.
You can find excuses to tell any story you want about yourself. And so if you're talking to someone right now and they say that the world is awful and they're scared, that's where they're at. That's them. And that's why I love the phrase, be the change you want to see in the world. But the thing is you can't be the change you want if you're conditioning yourself based on somebody else's narrative about the way the world is.
Or if you're consumed by these things that don't affect you.
Right.
And I would love to say that all the news we consume has some little trickle-down effect to us.
Well, everything's connected.
I'll give it that. The biggest effect is I don't even think the news is nefarious. They understand what traps our attention. And everything they're selling, you and I know this from YouTube, everything is sold by time viewed. That's what they're trapping. And so like if you go to a local news station's website and you try to find a news story, but then you got to get through the square inch where they're trying to tell you how bananas cure cancer, and then you get to the square inch where they're telling you there's a new cure that's coming from the tail of a donkey, and you can't even figure out what the news is because it's so convoluted with clickbait, and they don't care. They don't care about a pristine image. It's all come down to how do I trap awareness. Mm-hmm. And if I can trap awareness, then I can sell ad into that awareness. And they just know we're triggered by fear. It's very evident in the way the programming is dominated by fear. That's not because they aren't wanting us to watch. It's because they understand that's what triggers our concern and our desire to watch and to figure out, is the bomb coming today? Did the bomb come yesterday? Nobody told me. Now
not only the bomb, like where's it coming from? What flavor is it going to be? You brought up some interesting things. Like look back at the history of man, just in the last 30, 40 years, and how many times the news has come and told us these atrocities that we need to be focused on and what's going to happen and the horribleness that is to come, and how it didn't play out.
Yeah.
How little of it is true, particularly, as you said, if you start really evaluating your individual existence and how much time you worry about who's about to become a president of the United States. Did it really have any effect on you, the last president, or the one before that, or the one before that?
It's maybe had an effect on the stream of thoughts, that I'm winning or I'm not winning.
But it didn't have any effect on how you felt when you woke up today, who you fell in love with, what hurt you. Like what is truly going on in your existence,
if you can box it out,
is right here in front of you.
I think if you can box it out. If you don't, that stuff ekes into you. And you can go into, if you're on Team Red or Team Blue, you can go into the next 4 years thinking, shit, these 4 years are shot. There's just nothing to be done. The country's going to go in a way that is going to affect us all, and I'm going to be something different. When in reality,
but how many times have we seen
have all this experience where that doesn't play out. It's the same life. It's the same. I remember when Obama took office, everything was going to change. All of it was going to get better. But somewhere between the Bushes and where we are now, there's been an awakening. It's all the same shit.
Yeah.
It's all the same yogurt with a slightly different artificial sweetener. But it's all pulling in the same direction, and I think that...
And it all has almost the exact amount of effect on your individual life.
It never has mattered to me.
Only as much as you allow.
It never has mattered to me whether or not there was a Democrat or Republican in office. It is never... I just don't think it's ever impacted my life.
You never had a side?
No, I'm not saying... I'm mature.
Come on, you can't say never.
Let me rephrase it.
But you're past it.
But you're talking about getting your conscience. I'm talking about the reality of your life. I'm not talking about whether or not I'm upset that Team Red got it or Team Blue got it. Yeah, that can occupy your existence.
What I was trying to get to is that I'll admit I have been a teamer.
Yeah,
I have been this side or that side.
I'm not saying I haven't been one of those sides. What I'm saying
and that's all I was getting on you for saying that.
Even when I was on those teams, if you look back, your life is dictated by the actions you take in a day. It's got very little to do. Now, that can involve how much consciousness you're allowed to get clouded in the news cycle. And if you're going to get lost in the news cycle, the idea that you're going to now purposely find all this creation that was coming to you, and the news cycle steals from that, right? Because if you're lost in your purpose, you don't care about what the rest of the world is doing, right? You want everybody to be happy and all that jazz, but you come to this awakening that if I'm going to be the highest version of myself, if I'm going to stay in a positive mindset, the news can't be involved.
Yeah,
that's the conclusion that I came to. Now, can people manage it in ways that I can't? Yeah, I'm sure. But for me, I had to come to a realization to live my best life. I can't be listening to negativity at 300 times a day when I pick up my phone and switch and flip. It's programming, and so it's programming me towards negative. And so for me, it's just like cut it off, and then feel bad when I gotta all right, I get a little Jones for it, and I gotta go figure out what's going on in Eastern Europe that I need to worry about. And those moments come, and then I feel that emotion because it's not as common now.
Have you watched 1984 yet, or read any of that yet?
I have not.
Because we touch on this kind of aspect of conversation multiple times. And I haven't even read all of 1984.
I'm talking from my existence. I'm talking from my existence.
The premise of 1984, the beginning of it, is a whole lot of what's happening now. This Big Brother idea. There was this, and I don't remember much about it. I haven't read the whole book, but I do remember this aspect of it, was that people were required to go and stare at screens to get fed information. And it would make the hero of the story, you could hear his kind of background thoughts on it. It would make him angry. And that was what everybody was programmed to go do. Yeah. Okay. They were programmed to go believe that, something on the other side of the border, this other people were bad and evil, and they were getting reinforced all the time with how awful it is if you were over there. Now, I do think that in the end, what you find out is that the people who were the ones actually succumbing to this information were the ones who were living the suppressed, awful life. It wasn't the ones outside that they were being told to.
Yeah. Well, if you're not getting,
but anyway, the reason it's just crazy how true some of the topics or some of the ideas of that book or George Orwell's 1984 are exactly what we're seeing play out today, and too many people won't open their eyes to realize it. Like I said, if you were thinking all day about what that phone told you to think about, you're not living your own existence.
It's a hard thing to break, though, and if you're working in a 9-to-5 job, that phone's kind of sometimes your only chance to check out a bit, right? That phone is your little yogurt parfait at 1:30, and so this is our escape.
That's a bizarre. You're absolutely right.
That's exactly what's happening.
But think of how terrible
you sit at work. Sit at work, and you go, okay, I've checked the spreadsheets. Okay, I checked the inventory counts. Okay, everybody's working. I got another 4 hours of this. I'm on my phone. That is a modern work life, and I'm sure there are other people that do it differently. But if you're working in an office, your phone is your only reprieve from the mundane existence that you kind of find yourself in. So I never would have had the awareness around the negativity that I was feeling and deriving from the news cycle if I would have stayed in a corporate job, because it would have been, again, it was my escape partner. Me and that phone were buddies in our ability to escape what we were supposed to be doing. That was my partner. And so I held it in a high regard.
I touch on that because what you
rub all over it.
Oh my God! So what you're describing to me is a horrible human existence. What it sounds like to me is that what we're talking about here is that we dislike our life inside of a corporate cage throughout the day so much that our escape from that cage is to open one little door of mental trappings and then trap ourselves into a negative mental state just to escape from the limitation that we have of our day and our lack of control.
That was a cycle I found myself in a lot.
Wow.
Yeah.
And think of how many people are still living that.
Yeah.
Like we are sitting in cages that are inside cages that are inside cages, and we don't even realize that we hold the key.
Well, you can't see the cage.
That's an Eagles lyric, and I never realized the power of it until just now hearing you describe being in a cage and how you opened the cage door, and here we are sitting here talking about it.
Yeah, musicians have been trying to tell us the wrongs of the world forever. And
why don't we listen to art?
Because they put it to a beat. They put it to a beat, and when you're young, you don't even hear the lyrics. Like, have you listened to a Pearl Jam song lately? I mean, Pearl Jam was huge for me.
Yeah.
But I've listened to the lyrics now as a 45-year-old, and I'm like, well, hey, boy, he was saying some stuff back then. I just want to bang my head.
Yeah.
He was saying some stuff. And if you look at some of the musicians that will crank out profound statements in their early 20s, you just go like, wow, what are these guys here for? How can a 20-year-old know so much about life that it comes out in a song lyric as if they were 45 or 50 or already lived all this life?
Well, that's sometimes to me, that's just someone who got old enough to express youth without it getting trampled out of them. And it's managed to get a little bit of youth out at a late age.
Or they have clarity.
Because generally by the time you get higher in age, like that stuff's over. Like that is truly what the system is here to do. It's just to put you into conformity, take away your creativity, and put you in a box that has no individualism, but put you here for X.
I don't think that's where a lot of us end up. But I think you still have the opportunity to branch out on your own if you have the courage and go do something that is in your own space that's not part of that Rockefeller.
And the sooner you do it before the conditioning gets hold of you, oftentimes the easier it will be.
It's not for
that's
everybody.
Why I think they can
it's
do
not
it.
for everybody. Like, some people like corporate jobs. There were times when I enjoyed corporate jobs, but it felt like to me that I was on a 3-hour tour and the tour came to an end at some point in time. It was time to move on. But within that, there's I'm telling you, my phone was my little crack pipe.
That's so odd. Like, honestly, think metaphorically what that is. I'm in this cage of an office complex that I can't stand to be here. Mm-hmm. Oh, here's a little inkling. Let me stick my head in this negativity cage, and that's your only way out of the cage.
Yeah. The other cycle that I'd find myself in is I would take that little nugget of negativity and I'd throw it to 7 or 8 of my friends.
Oh God, yeah, we touched on that in the fear episode.
Check on this. Like I would take fear. I'm aware of it now. But I got stuck on Twitter for a couple of years, man, and I would that algorithm had me dialed up, man. It was playing me like
what was going to keep you going.
It would get me fired up at 9 o'clock. It'd get me fired up at 12. If I didn't want to go to sleep peacefully, it'd get me fired up. Anytime I wanted, I'd go there and get fired up, and then I could sling that shit around to my friends, and then I didn't realize that I'm just dosing them with negativity and disrupting them from whatever they're doing. I'm like, hey.
Here, I'm mad. I want you mad
existence. Too. Yeah, I would. Here,
it's misery loves company.
We're doomed. Do you agree?
You were in misery, and you loved company.
Yeah,
you love misery so much to break out of the misery you're in. You go find more misery.
We're talking.
I'm loving this misery. I want a big pile of it.
I basically just described my 30s to you. That's about what I did in my 30s. Like it was when I got introduced to Twitter, and then I found friends with similar interests. That's all we would do. Mm-hmm. And then there was a point in time in my life where I kind of transitioned out of that. And there's no way to you don't send out a letter and go, hey, dudes, no more of the conspiratorial from the a-hole of Twitter.
I've seen through the information curtain, and I don't trust the wizard on the other side anymore.
I've been to the back crack of Twitter's hole, and I'm just not caring to smell it anymore. So, but before I had that awakening, man, I would look forward to that, dude. I'd look forward to a text from a friend that was also upset about something in the world that we had no control over, and then I would
has nothing to do with your existence.
I would meet that energy as well, and so that's a funny take on mansplaining, right? Is we were basically mansplaining our outrage all over each other. Dude, look at this. Dude, get this in your ear. Get this in your. Hey, you want to join me and worry about this? Yeah, I've been looking for something to worry about. I've been looking for something to worry about. It's a great escape.
Yeah, that's essentially what the news is. And that's why I bring up that, who was it? I think it was Henry David Thoreau quote. All news is gossip. Oh, no, the exact quote is, to a philosopher, all news is gossip, and those who edit and read it are old women over their tea.
Old women are what?
Old women over their tea.
I used to read it quite a bit.
That's the Thoreau quote. Now, I don't exactly like his ageism and sexism at the end. But I do love the whole point that basically he's saying to a thinking mind, to someone who is really in control of what they put into their mental space, then news is just junk. I don't need that inside my individual life and space.
Is there some redemption for you for news? Like, what is there a valid moving mankind forward element to news that you and I are not giving credit towards?
I don't think so. I really don't. Now, I do think that there is a valid moving mankind forward aspect to the idea of controlling the narrative. Because that's what news does. They take the platform of where we're going to get our story about what the world is, and then they decide what you're going to think the world is by giving you that.
It's probably one
person.
So
I do wholeheartedly believe in that power of news, of the narrative over the populace. That is a real thing. Okay. But there is absolutely no benefit that comes from us doing that, from us following the mentality of one person and all believing that the world is this way and we all need to be this afraid of this thing. Like there's no benefit from that.
But if they turn the narrative and they try to go all positive, I don't think they could catch our awareness. I think whatever biologically trips whenever we get either inflamed by a fear, inflamed by an insecurity, which is just a fear, like there's something gripping about that pulls us in that direction. I don't think we'd watch an all positive news.
No, you're right. They touched on that on The Matrix. I don't know if you remember the show, but essentially,
I think I've seen it. No, I can't quote it.
Like there's a lot to it. But one of the things that he says in there is that we tried to give humans a utopia, but they wouldn't accept it. Human beings, no, we're not here for all happiness all the time. We want strife in our life. We want yin and yang. It's all got to be there. But the problem is that we go grab yin or yang from a whole bunch of stuff going on outside of us and try to fit it into our lives. And that's not where it's at. Find that within your own existence. I'm not saying there's not strife in the world. I'm not saying there's not hardship. But that hardship that you're watching on the news isn't what's right in front of you. You don't owe it your consciousness. You don't
owe it your consciousness. And you're no less a citizen if you turn that stuff off.
Right.
Because, again, there's some human in there. If you backtrack through any of these news stations, there's one person that's controlling the narrative, as you say, right? And it's coming through them. Or it's incredibly benign. We don't need to know there was a grass fire on the other side of town.
Nor do I need to worry about it whenever I'm just trying to make breakfast for my family right now.
Just to have it in the background. Have it in the background, rattling that negativity at you. I would encourage everybody just to try to live without the news for a minute and see if your general disposition is not improved.
Yeah, I'll tell you this. I don't know of anybody who's ever stopped watching the news who got excited about going back to it.
No, it'd be hard.
There are multiple people who have this mentality that you and I have right now, that there's no need for watching any news in my life hardly at all. And they will tell you that once they stopped doing that, their mental space opened up. They felt more free, more happy, more themselves, more empowered. Because essentially, whenever you're giving someone else the ability to take over your thoughts, you're becoming their slave. You are becoming a mental slave to the news channels. And whatever you stare at with your eyeballs all day, if it's not truly what's going on in your existence, if it's something else that's taking you to a different place out of your existence, you're not in control of your own life anymore. You just put on the chains of bondage within your mind for someone else to hold you there.
Yeah. And so it's a weird thing to, at some point in time, for mankind to try to reach its potential, we have to stop obsessing about the negative. obsessing about the negative in a way that if we look at it long enough, it'll fix it. I don't believe that. I think the more we present the negative, the more we believe the negative is the norm.
The more power it gets.
Yeah,
the bigger the negative
follow in that direction, right? And so even like at this generational moment where the prior generation, they came from a different place with news. They came from a Walter Cronkite. They believed in the integrity of news. You and I have seen news turn into this clickbait slosh. And we know all they're trying to do is trap awareness. And so I'm sure there's been some sincerity over the years in delivering a message in a way that helped people move them forward, delivered the message.
Integrity, objectively giving the facts. The problem is you can't objectively
I'm sure it happened.
I don't think it ever did. I don't think you can. I think it's impossible. Maybe it did. You can't give a news perspective on something without cutting out a whole lot of other things.
Yeah.
And so that's why you don't even want to touch into that. Only focus on what's right in front of you. And I'm not saying your world's going to be all good and it won't be all bad like the news are telling you, but it will be all yours.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing. Make your world
live in
smaller.
your world.
Yeah. The smaller world has always been, it's been a happier world for me. Because you're now getting into things where cause and effect have a reality.
Yes.
When you're watching the news, all there is this effect, and you don't even know the cause, and it's negative, and another bomb fell, and now you walk around with the anxiety of when your world is going to start to resemble theirs, and it's only a matter of time. And I think that subtlety of that, again, I don't think they're trying to program us. But the negative, I think the negative is strictly a business element. It traps the awareness. And so they feed us whatever we want to see. And the biology at this point in time for us is we're loving to dine on the negative. But it does feel like we're becoming so connected that has to evolve. Like there has to be another line of thought at some point in time that is not just, I'm going to fall into the news cycle that reminds me of my limitations. At some point in time, we have to turn that off. And we have to think in new ways, or perhaps in ways that we were originally intended, to find the positive that is all around us, that can be red curtained if your eyes are more attracted or your ears are more attracted to the negative. That's all the mansplaining I got, dude. I'm out of juice. I mansplained it. Hopefully I pissed off at least 7 people. If I can make it 8 or 9, I'm going to call that progress as well.
It's a beautiful conversation, and I don't know if I could talk about it till I don't know. I hate to say the word "towels come home," but
yeah,
there's a whole lot of juice that you could just keep going with this.
Yeah, I think we've done enough. I the way I'd end it, I'd just say if you doubt turning off the news can have a positive impact in your life, give it a couple days. Give it a couple days, because first thing will happen is you'll turn the news off. And then the next thing that will happen is you'll put your phone down for a minute. And then all of a sudden you start to exist again. You exist within your own existence, within those things that you control. Mm-hmm. And your thoughts at that point in time become local. And I think that's what you're saying. If I have local thoughts, then I have a better disposition towards reality. If I have these distant thoughts that
have nothing to do with your reality.
Technically have nothing to do with there's no cause and effect for me, right? It's just I'm just dining on this negativity. Then I don't know that making my world bigger has somehow improved my existence. I don't think it has. I think my mansplaining example here is make your world smaller. And whether or not you ask me for that advice or not, that's what I have to give, is that's always made my life better. When I step out of the news cycle and I focus on the people around me, things get better.
I hear you saying, for me. I hear you mansplaining
all down my leg.
I hear you mansplaining the phrase, only worry about that which you can control.
And it came from a man. I don't know. If I could be a woman, maybe it would have more teeth. Maybe I would be less of a villain than I am right now. But it came from a man. And that's all I have to offer.
Thanks for your male explanation.
It's unfortunate. I have not figured out how to deliver these messages as a female, and that may make me more guilty of being a male than I'm actually accounting for now. But
we'll get in touch with our feminine side in some way, shape, or form. Maybe it'll come out.
We should. It's important not to piss people off. We would like to thank you for listening to the Feral Minds podcast. Hopefully we triggered some curiosity that will have you seeking more. Remember, your mind is meant to run. Slap some sneakers on that bad boy and take it around the block. If you'd like to connect with us or enlist our feral thoughts on a problem in your life, visit us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, or at theferalminds.com. Also remember, our thought line is always available, 24/7. We don't even allow it to sleep. And we want to hear from you. That number is 866-340-3394. Again, that number is 866-340-3394. We look forward to hearing from you.